will cover the following topics. In this practice, we're going to look at how we can load information about products and reviews from files, which are comma delimited, bulk load data from comma delimited files. Also, we are looking at how we can serialize and deserialize Java objects. Okay, and just print product and reviews to text files. So different interactions, both text and binary. Now, of course, comma delimited files is rather primitive format. And you would normally, in modern sort of production programs, would not use such a primitive format. You probably would use something like JSON or XML or maybe even relational databases. But we actually have a chance to explore these in other areas. For example, database access, that's part of this course, is Appendix B, JDBC, and APIs such as Java Persistence API or, for example, XML or JSON mappings APIs are actually covered in other courses as well, such as development applications for Java EE7 platform. So these are more advanced forms of reading and writing data. But for starters, if you look at the basic I/O, well, I guess we could use basic formats, yeah, and we'll proceed to more advanced forms later, I guess, yeah, or in other trainings. Okay, well, let's start with the first part of this exercise. The assumption is that either completed the previous lab for lesson 12, or you could start with solution for lesson 12 if you like. Yeah, if you have completed the previous exercise, then you just continue with the previously written project. So first of all, we need some additional stuff to be configured in our project. So that's a config property file, yeah, and what we need to do is to put some properties that correspond to folders that we would like to use in our scenario here. We need folder to contain reports, data files, and a temporary folder. Yeah, so these are the entries you want to place in the config properties. Let's put them in config properties. At the moment, it contains entries that indicate a format of the product and review. And well, now we're saying that will be some folder where we'll write reports, some folder where we'll take data from, or a temporary folder. Nice. Now, we also need in the same file to add properties that describe what are the naming conventions for our files. And we need several types of files. We need a text file where we will be dumping the product report to, so writing product report in text format. We also need a format for files that represents products and reviews as CSV, comma delimited files, and a format for file name for a temporary file. So these are basically file names, yeah, future file names. And we place them in the config as well. Okay, perfect. So we'll obviously have to use substitution parameters here for file names. Yeah. Now, in the product manager class, we need to construct paths that will point to relevant folders, to the data folder, to the temp folder, and to the report folder. Add these three instance variables to the product manager class. So open product manager, find, well, anywhere really, place to add them. And just add these variables, right? You would need to fix imports. And nicely format everything, yeah? So I guess you can just put them on the same line. It doesn't have to be different lines, yeah? Well, whichever way you would like to format that, really. So yeah, we've initialized these paths towards the reports folder, data folder, and a temporary folder. Okay, and made an import of Java NIO file path object. Now, the next thing we need to do is modify the way we print in product reports, because we want to use that file to actually print the report to. So locate the print product report, and we need which one? Print product report access product object, because there are two of them. There's one with an int and there's another one with a product. So locate the one with a product parameter rather than with an int. Yeah, this one. And then this print product report method, we will, instead of printing the report to the console, we're going to print it to the file. Yeah. Okay. So to do that, we need to create this product file. We need to resolve the path towards the product file. So we have the config where the report file name is. Now let me remind you, the config has the report file name property. There it is. Yeah. That's that property. So we need to retrieve that part and then substitute here a product ID. That's basically the task. Substitute the product ID. What else we need to do? We also need to resolve that against the product folder, reports folder, the product file within the reports folder. And that's the path we need to create. Okay. Now, we also would remove the string builder here. We don't need that because we'll just directly print to the file. So instead of that txt string builder, let's resolve that file path. Again, format the code nicely. Fine. So once again, just to explain what we're doing, we're resolving here the path towards a specific file, which is formatted as the resource from the config with the inserted product ID. Yeah, it's part of the file name. And that's our product file, and it resides inside the reports folder. Okay, so since we commented out the txt string builder, we still have, we're still using this in this code, but we will be replace it, and instead we'll be outputting the print product report to a file. So for now, we still have obviously errors related to that. So next thing we asked to do is add try with parameters block. Let's try that. Put try with parameters block around basically all of these append method calls. Yeah. So starting from here, that's where the try with parameters starts, and ending below. And I guess you don't need that print out txt because, well, we're about to stop using that txt object completely, but we'll sort it out. So surround this appending of text with a try with parameters. And inside this try with parameters block, what you need to do is initialize the new print writer object. So print writer to write, that text. Print writer actually has the method append, just like the string builder. So you can use exact same, logic here. The print writer then refers to the output stream writer, which using UTF code page converts chars to bytes, and that refers to the output stream, which is pointing to a file. The option create, well, that basically creates the file if it doesn't exist, or overrides the file, if necessary. So that's what we put inside the try block, inside these parameters of the try. Let's put that in and fix all imports. And there you go. So format the code nicely, but that's basically the idea. Okay, so we have our try with parameters. We initialize this output variable, and we're gonna start using it instead of txt, basically. There's one more thing that we need to check, and that is, so we fixed the imports. That is, not just change the txt to the out, but also change the way you handle the line separator. because previously we're just doing /n, but you see, when you write an external file, you have to consider that different operating systems use different line separators. So on Unix and on Windows, that's apparently different, yeah? And there is a way of telling which line separator you want to use per each operating system for the class system. So the system line separator will do the trick, yeah? Let's ask it, yeah, and call that method, and it will tell us what is the current OS way of doing it. Because we write an external file, it kind of makes sense to consult operating system on these matters. And you use the out, as you can see, print writer out also has the method append, so you're fine. We'll use this out.append, we'll replace all /n's with the system line separator, and that's basically it. The rest of the algorithm is still the same. Not much of a difference, really. Yeah. Okay. Of course, you now notice that you still have a problem. And the problem is that this try block is not culminating in any catch. Yeah. So it obviously tells you that you still have unreported exceptions. There are two exceptions that could happen here, IO and unsupported encoding, but the unsupported encoding is variant of IO, basically. Anyway, so you have to still consider what you do with exceptions, of course. So what we're going to do, are we going to add a catch block? Well, no. Apparently, you asked to do something else. You asked to add a throws clause to the method. Throws IO exception, and you can do it by doing this, throws clause, yeah? So there you go. It added the throws clause. Apparently, even though you have a try block, you don't actually have a catch immediately after that. Now, you would wonder, why would you want to have a try block and not have a catch? Well, because the finally block is still formed for you. That's try with parameters. So still have a finally block here where this output stream is actually properly closed, right? Even though you decided to do the actual catch somewhere else, because you just did the throws clause. But the finally block is still formed for you. You can get rid of that txt thing. You don't need it anymore. Okay, so we're channeling the output to the file, but we still need to catch that IO exception somewhere, of course. Now, where do we add that? Well, print product report with product parameter is invoked from print product report with ID. Yeah, so we could add it here, right? Again, you can click here and just say surround with try catch or add a catch clause. If there is already a try catch block, you can just add an additional catch clause like that. Yeah. Lovely. And do we need to change anything regarding the logger? Well, yeah, we're told to change the error message, basically. Apart from that, everything else stays the same. Yeah, so we're just adding another catch, and we're catching all IO-related exceptions. Actually, that could be changed to variable logger, yeah, and then we add in a nice error message here, right? Okay, so is that a severe error? Well, if you didn't manage to successfully write a file, maybe, yeah, that's kind of serious problem, I guess. So the error level could remain severe, maybe, yeah, that does make sense. Okay. So now we just need to test that code. All we need to do is just run it pretty much as is. Let's just execute, because we have a couple of print statements here, printing this report 101, 103, and let's go to the shop, yeah, and just basically hit the run button, and that should print us some reports. There should be no output produced because we're not really printing anything to the console anymore. We're printing things to files instead. So now you can basically, using a desktop shortcut, open the file system navigator and just look at what reports were produced for you, yeah? So this is our desktop shortcut, and you could go to the folder labs. You can see in the config file where the folder is. Yeah, we've configured it labs and then reports. Okay, so you can just open these files. Yeah, and you could see, yeah, which, reports you're printing here. Yeah, there you go. So that's, these are reports on our products. Yeah, nice. And you can see how the file name pattern is formed. You substitute in product ID as part of the file name. Okay, if you print the same product report twice, you just override the file. Yeah, that's all what will happen. Simply overrides the file. Okay, the next task for us will be to bulk load data from files. So what we need to do in this practice is to write logic that loads products and reviews from comma delimited files. We need to modify the methods parse product and parse review and sort of, handle the actual input from files there. At the moment, they're doing the comma delimited parsing, but they're not actually doing things with files per se. Existing algorithms add review and product objects to the product map collection. However, the problem is that such approach is probably not suitable for bulk data load, because every time you invoke the right review method, when you create a review, you recalculate in all the average ratings and everything. Let's just take a look at the logic in the product manager and you see what the problem is. So say, for example, you're doing the review, and every time you're trying to actually parse the review, you immediately create that review object. And that causes the recalculation of the rating for the product. And if you do it in bulk, you will be scrolling through the collection of products, the map of products, over and over and over again. Yeah, so that's not particularly efficient approach. That's the problem with this. So we need to change that a little bit. So we'll use collectors to do the bulk loading. We will not load each product and review one by one. We will bulk load them instead. So certain other changes would have to be done to the format. The format of the product remains pretty much the same. But with the review, what we'll do is we'll put the review in a slightly different format. There will be number of stars, there will be comments, but the actual file name will contain the product ID. So the product ID for review will not be part of the review data. It will be part of the file name instead. Yeah. Yeah, so that's the idea. Right, that means that we need to change review data format in a config file. So it will have one property less. Review data format will only have two properties because the product ID will go as part of the review file name. As you can see, there it is. Yeah, that would be the product ID basically. That's what we expect. Okay, so we modify that format. And now the next thing, we need to modify the parts review operation in the product manager to construct new review object, of course, but the thing is, we don't want it, remember, we want it to enable the bulk load. We don't want it to immediately add a review to the list of reviews on a given product. So slightly different take on the algorithm. The signature of the parse review will change. At the moment, the parse review method, let's again find the parse review. Yeah, let's take a look. So parse review at the moment is void. What we want to do is we want it to return the review value, right? Okay, so we want to return the review, and obviously the return statement will be required. We don't want to automatically add it to the list of reviews. Yeah, we just want to return it. So inside we reserve the review variable. We'll need that in a parse review. And then what we want to do, is at the end return it. Yeah. So when we parse the review, we do the whole parsing and we eventually return the value. There's one more thing that we need to modify, and it's actual creation of review object. Instead of invoking the method review product, which remember automatically adds a review to the hash map of products and causes the recalculation of the rating, instead we will do it as just initializing that review object. Yeah. So really the rest of the algorithm stays the same. All you're changing here is you're saying review equals new review, yeah, and you construct a review for um, for a given rating and a given text, yeah. So the two parameters here, rating and text. That would be the rating will be the first parameter, so that will be values at position 0, and text will be second parameter. And we're just not going to have the third parameter at all. Yeah, so we expect the pattern only to have the number of stars and the comments. Yeah, so second one is comments. So that's a review object. We create it, we return it. Nice. So that's done. Now we need to do a similar thing with parse product method. Again, at the moment, as you can see, parse product is void. We want it to return product, and we want to change the way we, form that product object. So let's do that. Yeah. So first of all, parse product method should return product. We reserve the product variable here, and we should really return it at the end. Yeah. Okay. In the middle of this method, where we call in the create product here, yeah, two places, we're creating drinks and we're creating foods, yeah. We'll leave that, well, sort of as is. We still need to create a product, but we will be just initializing the local product variable instead. So when it's food, we initialize it to food. When it's drink, we initialize it to drink. So that's the only difference. We basically, instead of calling create product, we just create a new instance of drink or new instance of food. Yeah, the rest of the logic stays the same. That's because we're preparing this not to automatically add things to the hash map of products. Yeah, because we preparing this for massive bulk load of data, so we need to be able to create reviews and products without immediately adding them to hash map. Okay. So that's why we're just constructing their instances. In a way, we kind of simplified the code, but we'll see where we get with that. Now, we need the bulk loading methods. So we need two methods to bulk load reviews and bulk load products. Add an operation to the product manager that loads reviews, bulk loads reviews from a file. And that should be called load reviews. Well, put it anywhere and yeah, accepts the product as an argument, basically, and we'll find out why. So here's the idea. If we want to load reviews, what do we need to know? We need to know the product ID, because knowing the product ID, we can tell which review file we need to read. Because review file contains the product ID as part of a name. That's how we identify which review file to read. And that's what we're going to do in the load reviews method. And from here, when we load the file, we can then call the parse review and do the parsing and obtain the review object as required. Now we need to initialize the path that will basically read the review file, right? And the path is reviews data file, and it should reside within a data folder. So we need to resolve it under the data folder. Reviews data file is a resource from the config. And part of the reviews data file name is the product ID. So that's how we initialize that path. Okay, and that goes into here, this list method. Again, let's do some nice formatting. Make sure all the values are laid out nicely. Yeah, so something like that. That'll do. So we know from which folder we're going to read our reviews, yeah, and from which file the review for a particular product should come from, or reviews from a particular product should come from, because there might be multiple reviews, obviously. We also need to reserve this list of reviews variable, which we'll populate in a moment. So that's our list of reviews. Done. Reserve that. And yeah, file is there, list of reviews is prepared. Now we need to start actually producing some reviews. How do we do that? We need to perform first a check if reviews are there at all. So not all products will actually have reviews in the first place. So the file does not necessarily exist. And that's what we could check. If a file does not exist, then we know there are no reviews for that product. It's as simple as that. There's nothing there to read. Fine, then the list of reviews will be empty. Okay, that's a possibility. The other possibility, of course, is that there are some reviews, so the file exists, and that would be our else clause. In an else clause, what we need to do is use method lines that reads all lines from the file. We have the file already. We just need to specify which char set, because it's a character file, which char set would like to use to read lines. Now, every line from that file will be passed to review, to the parse review method. Parse review accepts a string, remember, and returns us a review object. So we'll get a stream of reviews. The lines method returns us a stream. The map takes the text returned by lines method, passes it to parse method, that converts it to the review. That's why we changed the parse review to return review object. And now we can do collectors to list and collect them all together to the list in nice scalable fashion. We're not trying to do the loop here. We're doing it in a much more scalable way with a stream instead. So that's the else clause. And we add in it after this if. Again, some nice formattings. If you need to add any imports, fix imports, this char set needs to be imported. But there's still some exceptions that we will have to consider handling, of course. Yeah, so still some work to do here. Because we're doing the input output and potentially throwing errors. Yeah? So we imported the char set, that's done. And now we need to consider exception handling. What we need is a try catch block to catch IO exceptions, because we clearly are producing them, right? Again, you can right click here and just say that you would like to surround the statement with try catch. Nice. And then what do we want to do with a catch? The actions in a catch. Change the level to warning. Yeah. Because we kind of just having a problem here reading a particular review, which is not the end of the world. Yeah. It's a problem, but it's a warning problem, not severe problem. Okay, so there you go, and just produce the error message in a log. Now, remember we promised to return the list of reviews, yeah? So obviously the return statement is still missing, so don't forget we would like to return reviews at the end, which kind of makes sense, yeah? Okay. So now the list of reviews is formed. It could have been the empty list if there no review file at all, or it could be list populated with reviews that we parse one by one, yeah, through the stream and load from file. Great, so that's done. Now we'll do the similar thing for loading products. So we have the method that loads reviews, but we don't yet have a method that loads products. So we'll do that. So the difference between load reviews and load products is the way you trigger the method to run. With load products, the parameter should be a file, which file to read the product from. With load reviews, all we need is the product ID, because from there we can derive which file to read, because the review file contains the product ID as part of a file name. So we can figure that out just based on a product ID. That's the difference. Now, of course, within the load products method, what do we need to do is reserve the product variable, because and we eventually will return it. But of course, first we'll need to figure out how do we, read the product, right? So that will be done with the help of the parse product method, which fortunately we already have. It's just that what do we pass as an argument to the parse product? We need to parse the line of text from the product file, right? So again, we use files lines to read the text. We need to resolve the file path using the data folder. And if we fail to do that, we'll throw the exception. If there's no product for us to read, we'll raise an exception, because maybe the actual text in the file is missing. Maybe the product file, CSV file exists, but there are no lines of text there. So that would be a problem, obviously. Okay, and that's what goes into the load product. So we parse in the product. That's an existing method that returns us a product. We just change it to actually return it. And we read in data from the file. Again, we'll still have some issues here. We need to handle IO exception. And the suggestion is, because we're throwing it, we're reading the file. There's also no such element exception, but that's the runtime exception, so you're not obliged to actually explicitly catch it. So in this case, we asked to do the try catch block. Good, let's do that. So again, you can right click here on the left-hand sidebar and say surround statement with try catch. There you go. Fix the logger. What do we want to do with the logger? Let's see. Just write a warning message again. It's exact same idea as we've previously encountered. The other thing that you're told to change is change the way you handle an exception. At the moment, you're handling an IO exception. But remember, there's another one that could be thrown here, no such element, right? So you could do the or you could just do this, just catch any exception. I mean, you can build separate catch blocks, but again, the question is it really the case that you want to do different things? Or you don't really care, you're just saying either way, it's an error load in the product. No matter which one of these errors, IO or no such element. Don't forget, you have to return the product, because we promised to return it. But otherwise, that should be fine, So doing the logger and eventually add a return statement. Now, finally, we need to trigger this load product and load reviews methods from somewhere. And for that, we'll create a private method inside a product manager called load all data. So we'll be kind of bulk loading the whole thing. Let's do that. Okay. Let's just add it somewhere. Right, notice that all of these methods were private, because we want the product manager format. We want a product manager to be able to handle its own, information loading. Now, what that method should do it should go to the data folder and it should list files. So just see what CSV files are available. And we're looking for product files because all we need to do is first list all products. Because once we loaded them, then we know the product IDs, and with these product IDs, we can start loading reviews. Yeah, so we know which review files to read. So we're listing products first, and for every product that we found in the listing, we need to filter it obviously because we're using only files that start with the word product. You can figure out why by looking at a config, because that's what we expect. Yeah, product files start with the word product. So that's what we're filtering in the listing of files. Then we basically will call the method load product for the method map. Remember what the map does? We had a list of file system paths, and we converted stream of file system paths, and we converted to the stream of products because load product returns as a product for a given file path. Okay, so that's the one we just written. Additional filtration. Well, discard any nulls. Here's the thing, remember, it is plausible that load product will still return as null if we have an error. Yeah, if there's something wrong with a particular product file. And what we want to do, yes, we'll log the error, that's fine, but we want to exclude such products that are non-initialized, the nulls. We want to exclude them from the stream. We want to discard them, filter them out. And then use the collector and collect products to a map, where the key in a map will be the product object, the one that you've just loaded, and a value in a map will be the list of reviews. Unfortunately, there is a method that can return us a list of reviews for a given product, and that's the method load reviews. Now it all came together. So once you listed the product files, from there, you can do the collection, collect everything, and put it into the map together with reviews. Wow. So we're doing the bulk load in one go for both products and reviews. And to ensure that this design would work, so this is really important design decision that we had to take really. Yeah? To ensure that this will work, what we need to do is form our folders and files in a particular way and prepare methods that will deal with loading of individual products or lists of reviews, out of which we'll then be able to construct our product review hash map. Okay, so all it's left to do is when we're doing the listing of the data folder, we need to catch the unreported exception. So yeah, try catch block as usual. Let's do that. Surround statement with try catch. And then what we're advised to do in the catch is just change the way we produce the error. In this particular case, I guess that will be a severe error if we fail to load products in the first place. That's a major problem, right? Because, product manager won't be able to function. It's okay not to be able to load a couple of reviews, I guess, but it's not okay to fail to load them all. So that's a severe error, I would imagine. Yeah. So we catch an IO exception, and we write in that information using our already customized logger. Okay. Now, any other adjustments that we may wish to make to our code? Well, yes, because we need to trigger that load data method, right? We just need to make sure it runs. And we could go to the product manager constructor and invoke that load all data method from there. Right? Product manager. Let's go to the constructor with a language tag. That's the one. And call the load data from here. The constructor with locale basically then calls the constructor with the language tag anyway. So that means that this method will be triggered whichever way you construct the instance of product manager. And that's when you load in all data. And that method will basically populate it will populate these products hash map with all the products and all reviews loaded from CSV files. That's what's going to happen. Okay. Anything else we need to and change. So we need to make sure the parse product and parse review are also private. And previously we made them public because we called them from the shop class. That's what we were doing in the shop. Just a reminder, yeah, we were calling parts product and parts reviews. But now we don't really need to do that anymore in a shop because we imply that these will be loaded from files for us immediately when we construct the instance of product manager. So we'll just bulk load data. So we don't need parse product and parse review to be public anymore because we're not going to call them from outside of product manager. We still need these methods because they're doing the parsing and we clearly use them, but they just don't need to be public. So make them private. Parse product and parse review. Yeah. So all of these, loading and parsing chunk of logic became private to the product manager class. Nice. So we expect when we create an instance of product manager for it to be fully initialized automatically. To test the updated logic, all we need to do is instantiate a product manager and just start printing product reports. Go to the shop. All of these other methods are now private, so you can't really call them anymore. But not that you have to. You could just call your print product reports. Now, before we do the printing of reports, let me show you where the data is coming from. So labs, you could find it in your config properties file, basically, if you're wondering, yeah? So in the config properties, there is this data folder, yeah? That's where the data is coming from. So if you go and check this labs data, you got a bunch of CSV files for products and reviews, lots and lots of them. Yeah, so it's quite a few. And they, as you imagine, contain comma delimited information that's on products. Yeah, and then if you find an equivalent file for review somewhere, reviews for the product 101, that's for the product 101. Yeah. Not all products would have reviews. Some will, some won't. Yeah. Anyway, so that's a generated set of delimited files that we'll tap into. Yeah. Make sure everything compiles just in case, but you can just hit the run button because NetBeans automatically compiles anyway. But clean and rebuild if you like, just to make sure you don't have any typos and you're ready to run it. And you'll get your reports. Where do you get your reports printed to? The reports folder. So we could go to labs reports and see these reports printed, yeah, for our products. That's the report for product 101, and that is a report for the product 103. Actually, it has some reviews, yeah, well. But you obviously see that we are not initializing any reviews here. We're not creating any products here. We're not doing any parsings here. We rely upon a product manager to bulk load that data for us from the delimited files and just come up automatically initialized. So yeah, we're running our project, and then we can look up the folders and see, how they all came up. Yeah. And look at the report files. Now, what's going to happen if you print non-existent product, just out of interest? Can that happen? Yeah, of course. You're asking, print a product report for products 42. But in fact, the products only exist in a range of 101 to 163. Yeah, you can see the data folder. So if I try to do something silly, like printing one of these, yeah, well, I'll just get an error that product 42 not found. Yeah, fine. But the data will still be loaded. It's just a question of I can't really print that product report. What about the other reports? Let me just prove it by printing some report, 104, for example. Yeah, let's just try that. Obviously, you can see that the other reports are printed, but I was just printing something that's not in that folder. So you'll see additional report coming up. Other reports are still printed to your files. The report for product 42 is not, obviously, because it can be printed. You just get an error. But a report 104, yeah, there you go. It has been printed nicely. Yeah, you can see that some lady gray tea. Yeah, okay, whatever. So you could test the reaction to the error case sort of scenario. And you could use other methods. There are methods like print products. You could call that one. Yeah, that doesn't print to files, but it allows you to specify like filtering conditions and order by clauses. And so we could use that method as well. Actually, you can just uncomment that because it should already be somewhere in your source code. There it is. Yeah, you can just uncomment that. And you'll see more products printed. This time they will be printed here, yeah, because the print products method does not really channel the output to the file, it just prints to the console. So this information is coming from that bulk loaded data set. Fantastic. So we've done some tests, yeah. Now here's an interesting thing. What if we'll add another product? Can we do that? Well, apparently we can. We can just, the old code that was in the product manager class that dealt with the addition of reviews and products is still there. Yes, we added the ability to bulk load, but we didn't disable any of the existing methods that were just creating products and reviews. So yeah, you could do that. You could certainly do that. And let's try. Let's do that. Let's just add another product. Let's remove this bogus print report for product 42, which makes no sense anyway. But just yeah, paste that. Yeah. So we add in an extra product. Yeah, kombucha. Right. Okay. And that's 164. And to test that we successfully added that, we could print the product report for it. Print product report 164. Let's do that. Obviously, let's just check for a moment. We don't have that 164 here. And if we check the lab's data, we don't have 164 product either. 163 is the last valid product. Yeah. Okay, so let's run that. And then let's check the reports folder. Do we have that 164 in reports? Yep, we do. So apparently we managed to add that to the hash map of products and reviews. Has it been added to a file system? No, we never write data to this folder. We read from it, we bulk load, but we never actually save anything to this folder. Right, so the product 164 hasn't been saved to the file system because we just did the loading. We haven't done the writing. We could have, I guess. Yeah, it's just a matter of when you create a product, add in a logic that also writes it to the file system. Well, we could have, but that's not what's happening in this particular program, right? Nevertheless, you can obviously compile run and you can see the report printed out. So we adding it to memory of the Java program, but we're not saving it to the data file. We're just saving it to report file. Okay, so optionally, you can clean up all the test logic and yeah, just basically remove the comments around the bits that you don't need. The remaining kind of test case is really simple. What happens when you print the report on existing product? What happens if you add new product and more reviews and print them? And what happens when you just sort of trying to get discounts or trying to print whatever products with filtering conditions. But that's really it. That's kind of the logic that we could use to test, ubiquitously test our application. Yeah, that's kind of sufficient subset. Yeah, to perform required testing. You can get rid of the rest of it. Yeah, or just comment out the rest of the code. Okay, so once again, yeah, just make sure we understand how the program works. So we could see this is like calculating discounts, yeah, average discounts, total discounts per product rating. This is doing the report on all products with a given price bracket, less than 2 price, yeah. Okay, and the printing of reports that goes directly into the reporting file system. That's not, these two are not echoed to the console. In the memory swap mechanism exercise, in this practice, we'll look at how we can serialize our objects and deserialize them, right? So we need to be able, for example, to implement some kind of memory swap mechanism, such as take products from memory, dump them to temporary files, and load them back if necessary. To achieve that, we need to make sure that products and reviews implement serializable interface. Okay, let's do that. Let's add serializable to a product and to a review. So class product should, it already implements rateable, but will also implement serializable. That is in practicaIO, needs to be imported. And so is review. Review implements comparable apparently already. Oh, it's fine. Well, implements serializable as well. There you go. Now, food and drink are subclasses of product. The product implements serializable, then food and drink are kind of, well, they are subclasses of products. So whatever product implements, they kind of implicitly have that capability. So they're considered to be serializable automatically if their parent, which is product, says it is, right? Fine, so we've managed to make our components serializable. And that's just a permission, remember, it's just an indicator that allows objects of that type to be serialized. Now we need a method that will perform the serialization. In a product manager, I guess, let's create a method called dump data. Okay, nice, dump data. So product manager, put it somewhere nearby load all data, I guess, so there will be kind of logically close, but one loads, another dumps, yeah. But the order of methods is irrelevant. It's just for your own sort of logical readability, nothing more than that. So within this dump data method, we'll basically take the products map and write it to a temporary file. And by the way, where the temporary file goes, well, for that we created a config folder with a temp file name, and the temp folder. So that's where the temporary files will be placed. Okay, yeah, just a reminder. Yeah, that's part of the configuration. So now what we want to do is prepare here a try catch block, because obviously we'll be catching some exceptions. Inside dump data, right, we expect IO exceptions, we might as well write try catch immediately. You can add it later after you write your logic, but yeah, that's the order is irrelevant. So we'll prepare the try catch straight ahead, and if we have a problem, I guess we categorize that as a severe error. Right, of course the rest of the logic still needs to be written inside this try, so still to come. Inside a try block, we need to ensure that the temporary folder actually exists. The create directory method verifies that a path exists and before trying to create it, but we probably don't want to try to create it if it's already there. Yeah. So kind of it doesn't exist, let's create it. Then if it does exist, well, don't do anything. Yeah, that's why we need an if check to verify its existence first. And then create directory if necessary. Okay, done. So, going forward, after this if block, we need to resolve the path to the actual temporary file. Temporary file, remember, needs an extra value substitution. See, in the config here, it has a kind of a variable part that we need to substitute. And what we propose we should do, yeah, is to put there a timestamp, an instant. So when you create that file, I guess. Yeah, it's just part of the file name, basically. Well, why not? And put it inside the temp folder. So this is that substitution of a value, yeah, as part of the file name. That's done with the message format. And then resolving that as a subpath within the temporary folder. The instant needs to be imported, so do that, yeah. Okay, file has been created. We imported an instance, yeah. Now, inside the same try block, inside this try, immediately after you created the temp file, create another try with resources block. Oh, the try block can be inside a try block. Yes, absolutely. And this new try with resources block should initialize an object output stream so we can actually write to the file. And it will point to this new temp file that we've just managed to arrange. If the file doesn't exist, create it. Okay. We also want, by the end of this try, to actually close the output stream. That's why it's try with parameters. So the closure will final block will automatically occur immediately after we leave this try. So we don't leave that output stream open. Okay, let's just do the imports first. Yeah, import the object output stream, which we initialize in here to point to a file. So now we have an import here, we added that. Now what we do is inside the inner try block, we need to write that products map to the output stream. For that, we can just use write object methods. Yeah, that's it. There's another thing we want to do inside this inner try block. That's creating a brand new empty hash map and assigning it to products. That's interesting. Let's try to grasp the logic of what's going on here. So we have taken the products map from memory with all the products and reviews inside and dump it to the file. And then we basically resetted the reference in the products map to point to a new empty hash map with no products and reviews there whatsoever. We just swapped the entire set of products and reviews out of RAM and resetted the reference to that memory to point to an empty object. That's what this inner try block is doing. Should we proceed to resetting this products map if we fail to write it? We shouldn't. If we fail the right object here, if there's an exception here, we shouldn't proceed to the next line. This is why these two lines are grouped together into one try block, because we don't want the next thing to happen if the previous thing fails. The next thing, we need to have reverse, sort of flip side of that behavior, and that's the restore data method. Okay, that one will read products from the file. Yeah, so we had the one that writes and we'll have the one that reads. Probably copied slightly more data than I want from the PDF, but we'll just erase the unnecessary bit of text. Okay, so we're reading the data from the temporary files. Very similar, we'll have a try catch block. catching exceptions here, right? Nicely format everything. Okay. And yeah, and we're catching, notice we're catching all exceptions, not just IO. And the reason is that apart from IO exception, we can also have class not found. That's the other thing that could go wrong. And also we could get no such element if we're trying to locate non-existent file, for example, if there's no swap file, for example, then we'll get that problem. So the number of exceptions can happen. If you care to do different handling for these exceptions, just write different catches. If it's the same handling you want to do for all, then have a single catch, just catching generic exception, that'll do. Okay, so inside this block, what we need to do is initialize the path towards the same temporary file. Yeah, exactly the same file that we were just, dumping. Yeah, how do we do that? Well, I guess we can just list which files are available in temp folder. We know that temp folder path, and we just do the listing. And we're looking at any files that end with temp. That's our filter in the list method. Find first, or else throw an exception. That's how we can end up with no such element exception if we didn't find any temp files. Yeah, but otherwise we pick up whichever first file we get. Right. The logic could be a bit more precise. We can really put more code here to really look for the file with the latest timestamp. Yeah. But we kind of assume there's just one temporary file in that folder. We either get it or not. Yeah. No, well, there's always a space for improvement. But this is the assumption done in this particular exercise. Just assume that there is only one temporary file, yeah, in that folder. Okay, listing files, yeah. I think it will be a little bit more readable if I'll do something like this, yeah. So align list, filter, find first, and then at the end, or else throw, yeah, it kind of makes sense what we're doing. Okay, so we are looking for that temp file. Now we need to use data from that file to actually restore the hash map of products and reviews. So next we'll add another try with resources blocks. It's very similar to what we were doing in dump data, but this time we're obviously using input stream, object input stream, instead of object output stream, and files input stream because we're reading, yeah? And there's one more thing that we want to do. When we read file, temporary file, and we load everything from it to memory, I guess what we want to do is delete and close. So we don't want that file to stay in the file system, really. Yeah, we want to get rid of it. Which kind of explains why we're expecting only one file in that folder. Yeah, we dump, we create a file, we restore, we delete it after we restore. Okay, so make sure you've got correct imports, yeah, of object input stream. Format everything nicely, align whichever way you want to align, that's up to you. Just so long as you feel that the code is nicely readable. Yeah. Okay. So we have an input stream. Now we need to restore what we're reading from the stream. Object input stream has a method read object, returns us, well, presentation of an object as generic object. We cast it to hash map and assign it back to that product's variable. Yeah. Remember the one that we previously set it to be just an empty hash map, but we can now restore back the content from the temporary file. Make sure everything compiles. Yeah. Okay. Just hit clean and build. There are a few notes here that are worth considering. You will get here a warning message. Here, you'll get a warning message. And the warning says that you're using unchecked or unsafe operations. And that's at that point when you're doing this sort of restoration of the object. Okay, well, the reason for it is because you're restoring the hash map from the file, you lose generics information. What you're reading from that data dump, doesn't have the generics specification. Like, it restores the hash map, but there is no information there that says it's actually a hash map of products and reviews. It's just a hash map. Yes, there are products and reviews inside, but that's not something that is compiler validated. It's just loaded from the file as is. So during deserialization, compiler has no chance to check that you actually correctly using generics. Go figure what comes in from the file, right? We sort of assume that that's the correct data there, but what if it isn't? So in this situation, compiler says you are doing something that I cannot validate. Compiler says it's fine. If you're loading actual products and reviews from that hash map into that hash map from that file, you're perfectly fine. But the compiler just says, I can't guarantee that what you're reading from that file will be actually products and reviews. Let's just hope that they are, yeah? So exactly, because it's just an external file. You don't really know, maybe it's corrupted or maybe somebody wrote something into that file, which isn't what you expect. Right, so there is this warning. More on the generics and annotations, which is related to this warning, will be found in appendixes A and D. That's really kind of interesting in-depth coverage of why this warning occurs and how you can basically say suppress it, so make sure it doesn't come up, yeah, and the rationale behind how the generics and annotations actually handle this situation. Okay, so that's an appendices. Now, back to what we're discussing. If you don't want that warning to come up, in other words, if you're saying, I'm sure that that file contains products and reviews, yes, you're telling to the compiler, I know you can't vouch for it, but I can. I know that it's fine. Then you put this annotation called suppress warnings, and that basically, you suppress and unchecked warnings. And it basically tells the compiler, don't worry, I'm sure I'm loading right information. That's not just hash map of something. That's a hash map of what I want it to be, of products and reviews. Okay, right? So it's simply to tell the compiler that you know what you're doing, yeah? Because compiler cannot validate it for you. Compile again, and you see that everything will compile nicely with a warning disappearing, because you basically tell the compiler, don't worry about it. I know what I'm doing here. Good. So we're moving on. We just need to test it. So here's the thought, yeah? What if we'll, in the shop, we'll have this product manager. Remember, it bulk loads data, so we can print like product 101 report. And then we'll have the additional product added. Again, it's added only to memory. It's just, yeah, something we add to that hash map and some reviews. Then we dump and restore it. And we know that when we dump, we completely clean that reference towards the hash map, when products reference from the hash map, yeah? So we just reinitialize that part completely. We know that. And then we just try to print product reports again and see if they will come up. So let's add these 2 lines of code to the shop. Okay. And we can actually print some product reports after that as well. Why not? Just to see that they also coming up. If you really, really want to see that, thing happening sort of in action, yeah, dumping data, restoring data. Let's just, do you know what? Let's just print different reports. So for example, print report for the product 105 or something. And for complete clarity of what's going on, we'll probably just also go to reports folder and just erase everything. So you don't have to do it, but because the file's automatically overwritten. But the reason why I'm erasing everything, so you could see that they will be formed. And for example, the report for the product 105, yeah, which is clearly something that will have to be printed after I restored data. And actually, you don't even have to print that report to a file before you dump, yeah? So you can see that everything that will be arriving in that folder will be arriving. Let's prove it. Let's not print any reports prior to us dumping data. So whatever we'll see in that folder will be after we restore, yeah? Okay, anyway, so build your test case, run it. You'll see things coming up on the console here. These are the print products and get discounts. Yeah? And they clearly are appearing after we restored data. And you can also see that product 105 and 164 reports were also produced. And again, the data here clearly is coming from the hash map of products after it has been restored. As for the temp folder, well, the restore data method erases everything from here. Yeah. So the file will be gone. Yeah. I mean, again, you could, I suppose, go to the product manager and change this delete and close option. I think there might be even a note in the exercise that tells you that. Yeah, so instead of delete and close, if you want, you can leave the option as read, yeah, instead of delete and close, and see what will happen, basically, yeah. So then you would be able to observe that file. Let's change it to read, yeah. That basically means you're not trying to delete it. You're just reading the file, but you're not trying to delete it. And if I'll run this application again, then the temp folder, the file will not be gone. This is your temporary file. Well, it is a binary file. There's nothing much to see there. It's just basically a binary data dump of your product's hash map. But yeah, it's there. You can obviously get rid of it and get rid of that file manually. And if you want to do any such experiments, don't forget to restore back the delete and close option. Yeah. So your program will eventually be cleaning them. So yeah, that's just if you want to play around with it a bit. And then finally, we asked to change access to dump and restore data to private in a product manager. Well, here's the thinking behind it. It's very unlikely that you will ever want to trigger dump data or restore data methods from the class shop. At the moment, that's how we're doing it, but we're doing it, frankly, for testing reasons. The reality is that what you probably want to do is in the product manager, periodically check how much memory you're utilizing. For example, when you add products and reviews, you can see how much RAM you're using, and then decide, okay, I'm using too much memory, I've got too many objects, how about I'll just dump them to a file? And even then, maybe you don't want to dump the entire hash map of products. Maybe you want to write an algorithm here that dumps some of the products, but not all. Yeah, I don't know, something like that. So you may make some decisions about what exactly you want to swap and how you would like to restore. And it should be really driven based on, your memory utilization or number of objects you've initialized. So some kind of an automation around calls towards these two methods. For testing reasons, yeah, we can call them from the shop class, but that's not really the production way of doing it. Yeah, so you can enhance that. Finally, just a final bit of cleanup. You asked to remove all logic from the shop except just a basic initialization of product manager. So the rest of it goes, yeah. just initialize the product manager, because in later exercises, we'll have to build different sort of test cases here. Yeah, there you go. That is the end of this particular segment.